I don't mean to flex on you. I don't mean to flex. I know it's Monday. I know you're listening to this on the way to or from work or school or doing some chores or picking up kids. I know it's Monday. It's probably been a heck of a day. So I don't mean to flex, but I am talking to you from the distant past. It is Saturday for me, and I'm in a really good mood, and I'm super happy, and I'm full of energy, and I feel really good because it's Saturday morning, and I'm off work, and I'm just really glad to have this day off. It feels really great outside. It did rain. It did actually thunderstorm a bit last night, but it feels really good now in the house and outside. We don't need to have any machines running to adjust the temperature. Everything is really nice. Now, if some catastrophic event happened between now and Monday, it hasn't happened yet, so I can't warn you in the future. I mean, okay, all of my videos are technically done in the past, unless they're live streams, but I mean, even then, this is quite a ways away. So anyways, best of mornings to you and welcome home, brave heroes. I'm Ash. This is HeroQuest, and this is the BwodeCast, long-form styled podcast in which I, Ash, talk about HeroQuest and other things dungeon crawl adjacent. And today I want to crawl through the dungeon of a comment that I saw in one of my recent videos. It was the video on the playtest of the Orc Bard, which itself was a re-upload from the Amalgamash channel. It was taken some time ago. So we're just going to jump right into this. So whatever you're doing, commuting to or from work, picking the kids up, dropping them off, might have been a heck of a Monday for you. Maybe your Monday is just beginning. Maybe you're not listening to this until Tuesday. But whatever you do, however you enjoy it, be safe. I want to talk about 4 attack dice, 4 defense dice. Wow, what a riveting headline. This is take number 5. I really thought that I was going to sell this idea and keep my audience completely captivated by it. Captivate, you can't go anywhere. I said the magic words, 4 attack, 4 defense. The comment said 4A, 4D trumps. That's it. 2 words. Are arguably an acronym, sort of amalgamation of letters and numbers and a word. And that's it. What does it mean? I know what it means. The comment is saying that a hero that can reach the goal, the ideal of 4 attack, 4 defense is the superior hero. Not for nothing. I mean, we've been playing this game for decades. There are people that have play styles in which they adopt the bonk. The bonk playstyle is a valid playstyle. It's a fun playstyle. It means you get the thing that hits the heaviest. And if somebody tries to hit you, you try to block it with the biggest, bestest thing you can. It's that simple. It is a very dwarf and barbarian coded comment. It is a very dwarf and barbarian playstyle. Some might have you believe that no matter what abilities a character possesses or what kind of playstyle they might cater to, whatever playstyle was in mind when the creators made that particular type of hero, that 4A, 4D is the peak of masculinity. You don't have to like it, but there it is. It is the ideal to which all heroes should aspire. All heroes should be building up their money until they can afford 4 defense dice worth of armor and 4 attack dice worth of a weapon. As long as they're allowed to equip it, as long as they don't have equipment restrictions like the wizard or some of the other select heroes. But those heroes, too bad. Too bad. For those heroes, 4A, 4D trumps. Now, I'm not responding to this comment mean-spirited, and I don't think the comment was intended to be mean-spirited at all. But I do think that while I fully believe, support, and agree with the playstyle, because I think that there is no invalid playstyle, and I support all playstyles, and I absolutely support a game that caters to different playstyles that work together, I do not think, and I would not want people to believe that this is the law, that this is the peak way to play, that this is the most fun for everyone. And I want to call special attention to how this thinking could be problematic due to the fact that we have ability cards. You can walk around and basic attack and get 4 AD every time if you have the correct weapon, if you have the ability to have that, you don't have restrictions and so on. You can also have the 4 defense dice as long as you don't have equipment restrictions, as long as you're playing a character that has the means to get that. A character that trumps and dwarfs all other characters, even if they are a dwarf, because they can achieve 4A, 4D. But before we dig too deep into this thought process, I want to take a step back and I want to address first the game as a whole. This game, HeroQuest, simple as it may be, has the shelf life and staying power that nearly no other dungeon crawler has been able to achieve since the original HeroQuest. It has one of the most passionate and fervent fan bases, one of the most creative communities that exists. Yes, the DNA of HeroQuest is in quite a few dungeon crawlers that have been developed since its inception. It wasn't the first to do a lot of things, but it was one of the first to bring a lot of those things together. And it keeps things simple and somewhat open-ended. It encourages players to kind of fill in that what happens next when the main quest is done. It's not perfect. No game is. It's not without its flaws. No game is. It's not for everybody. No game is. But people have added their own complexities onto a version of HeroQuest to try to make it into something more advanced, more fun. And they've ended up with Altar Quest. They've ended up with Dungeon Saga Origins. They've ended up with Orc Quest. Notice how these 3 games are similar in a lot of ways, but they're also very different from one another, which kind of highlights the fact that no 2 people are going to approach HeroQuest the same way in order to advance it or make it more complex. But also, more importantly, notice these games just do not have the household name that HeroQuest has and has had for decades. I'm not saying they're bad games, that they're undeserving of having that shelf space. And I know that all of those were games that happened to be crowdfunded. So they needed pledges. There were going to be limited runs. They weren't going to have the same ability as a game that has the money of Hasbro backing it. And I'm not naive to this. I understand this. I've bought these games, studied them, played them. I understand. But fact remains, there are other board games produced by more well-known companies like Wizards of the Coast that don't have the staying power of HeroQuest. There are 6, count them 6, Dungeons & Dragons Adventure System cooperative board games, plus 1 expansion. There are many Warhammer quests. This thing comes back time and time again in different forms, significantly altered from its predecessors, almost like a Stormcast Eternal that has been brought back to life after a lightning strike and has lost a little bit more of its faculties. And I'll throw a special mention to Talisman here, but Talisman isn't a dungeon crawler. It is very much more of a board game than it is anything else. And that's not to throw any sort of shade or criticize Talisman. It's just separating the categories because the category matters for context. So I make that point to say that despite some vagaries in the rule set as written, despite some limitations where game developers don't necessarily want to flesh something out so completely that it's impossible to homebrew on top of it, and I am referring to the numerous original mechanics that were almost guaranteed to be inspired by several variations of homebrew mechanics developed over the decades that have been included with every single expansion, thus making the game scale out a little more in terms of complexity each time, but in small doses. The game continues to endure and the game continues to inspire, and there's something right about what is being done with the game. And so I say all that to say there are heroes that cannot achieve 4 attack, 4 defense, not because those heroes are intended to be a crutch or weaker, but because those heroes do cater to a different valid playstyle, and because 4 attack, 4 defense is not actually the peak. It's not the goal. Every stat in HeroQuest matters. Your body points matter. The maximum amount of body points you can have does matter, because if you start out with a very low amount, then no amount of potions is going to make that maximum amount rise. I mean, I guess there are items in the game that could increase your body points permanently by 1, but that's beside the point. Those are valid for every hero. Your skirmishes in combat are beginning to get nuanced. They are becoming situational. it's not just a case of, can I bulldoze through this? I mean, if that's your playstyle, you absolutely can continue to pursue that. Just the same as if your playstyle is to stand in the doorway and let all of the monsters absolutely eat sword every time they come near. That's a playstyle, and that's actually something that a lot of different heroes can engage in. But the ability cards in particular matter. There are no guarantees in HeroQuest. There's not even a promised tomorrow for the game system itself. But just because you have 4 attack dice doesn't mean that you're going to roll 4 successes. It doesn't even mean that you're going to roll 1. In fact, because skulls take up 50% of any given combat die, you have just as much of a chance of rolling all skulls as you do rolling none. I'm pretty sure that's statistically accurate. Every time I've made a statistics claim on this channel, it's been immediately corrected because it's been false. That one should be accurate. That one should be correct. Same goes for the defense dice. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had a barbarian lose against a goblin who just got extremely lucky on their rolls. It's shameful. It's tragic. It's enraging, but it does happen frequently, to me in particular. Having a roster of 4 heroes enter the game board who are all the same, who have all 4 attack, 4 defense, that's boring. Yeah, okay, so you might have 4 people who really want to play that playstyle, and you might have a Zargon who loves throwing monsters into the meat grinder. Maybe it becomes a game that is so easy at this point that Zargon loves just generating more monsters than what are canonically in the quest just to throw at the meat grinder, and just celebrates every single monster kill with the heroes. Yeah, you absolutely showed that skeleton and that zombie what for. We're going to throw another 3 orcs on the board. Who wants to go next? How about you, barbarian who's dressed up as a wizard? But if that was the intent of the design, we would have had that a long time ago. We don't have that. Yes, I know the elf, the barbarian, and the dwarf could have absolutely all gotten the same loadout, the same kits. They could have had the exact, but that's then. That's fine. That's valid. But we're in a different era now. We have access to so many more heroes and so many more expansions with new mechanics. And Avalon Hill know this, no doubt. They know that not every player wants to just get to 4A, 4D and call it a day. I mean, where's your sense of growth after that? Sure, some heroes seemingly have kind of a stopgap. The monk and the warlock are 2 heroes that seem to suffer from this early game. The warlock doesn't seem particularly overpowered, but their wand, right from Quest 1, is absolutely a boon if you can keep them out of harm's way long enough for them to finish off monsters that are in your path. And the monk is an absolute beast, but the beast that you get at the beginning of the game isn't going to change very much from the beast that you end up with if you were, bestowed upon 2,000 gold coins to spend on whatever you wish. The armory is not really the source of the most interesting weapons and armor anyway. That award goes to the artifacts and the special treasures that are found in the expansions. Those are the items and weapons that are going to make your characters absolutely unstoppable depending on the situation. And that is the HeroQuest that I think deserves the love and attention. That's the HeroQuest that's got a little bit more brain behind it. That's the HeroQuest that has the design conventions put in place, where the designers are like, we need to make this, what's the word? The magical word that has kept the game enduring for decades. Interesting. We need to make this special. We need to make this different. Let's go back to the classic party. Dwarf, elf, barbarian, wizard. I actually don't prefer all 4 of them to have the same loadout. I actually prefer for 2 of them to have long swords and for 1 of them to have the battle axe, because if I have that set up, then I can have 1 character, preferably the barbarian, tanking a doorway with the battle axe, and I can have the elf and the dwarf with long swords to either side. They now have the extra reach that they need to be able to hit the monster diagonally. It's kind of a poor example because doorway combat's not fun for everybody, but it's absolutely something that you have to engage in from time to time, probably pretty frequently due to the nature of the board having so many single tile wide corridors in between rooms. That, and if your players are playing a bit conservatively minded and they're trying to not get hit multiple times in a round, that's the way that they're going to play. That's a different topic with its own pros and cons and perspectives. We'll dig into that another time. I do have a video on doorway combat here on the channel already, but getting back to design convention 4A and 4D. We'll take another step back and look at the overall chain of campaigns that would be created if we were to play all the expansions in order. As of the time of this video, there is no play order. There is just the suggested sort of lore order. Here's the timeline of events. You can disregard that, not because you're Zargon, but because ultimately there's not a lot of stuff that happens that really has a reference before or after. People just really like to have things in a sort of order, even if it's arbitrary, and the official sources can absolutely give that order, but there are not a lot of places where that actually matters. And mechanically, it barely matters at all, because mechanically, the only order that does matter is that you play the game system first, whether that's the original 2021 game system. I know I just mixed 2021 and original in the same sentence. Bear with me. Or the First Light game system. Now that original makes sense. You didn't think about that, did you? This is a warning. Don't let it happen again. So you can play either one of those to begin with, and then you play an expansion. Doesn't matter what expansion. You can play any of them. They all have the exact same text where it's like, hey, play this after you play the main game. There is one expansion, happens to be my favorite right now, Wizards of Morcar, that you can play starting in Wizards of Morcar. You still need the game system or First Light, because it's still going to make use of furniture pieces and stuff that are in the game system and not with the expansion. That's fine. It's understandable, but it's extremely exciting that you have a third jumping off point with Wizards of Morcar. Now, after you have played that, what do? Now we are back in, if you really want to split hairs land, then there is no official order. There's nowhere to officially go from here land. And that is going to be up to Zargon. That's going to be up to you and your party. What do you guys want to play next? The most natural thing, and the thing that everybody does, basically everybody, is play the game system first, play an expansion, maybe trying to go by the order, the suggested lore order, and then play another expansion after that using the same heroes. Typically, you will take your heroes, your champions who have finished the 14 quest game system or the First Light game system, and you will take them into the expansion as they are, kitted with gold, ready to hire mercenaries if that's supported by your upcoming expansion. However, after you play that expansion, now what? Well, the reason why there is no official answer to the now what, the reason why we don't chain these expansions together in any meaningful way, in any mechanical way, I mean, you can, absolutely. People have been doing it for decades, but the reason that we don't have an official rules as written suggestion on how to do that is because of scalability and the challenge of balance. All right, so that was a lot of words. I'm going to take a step back here. Again, even further back. We're stepping all the way back here, and I want to sort of reintroduce myself here. I don't have any professional experience designing games. I don't have any professional experience making video games. I don't have professional experience making board games, but I've been making games since I was 9 or 10 years old. As soon as my brother understood the concept of he could control one thing and he was supposed to use that control to have fun playing in this arbitrary created world, and that I would be controlling either another entity or a bunch of entities, it was on. We had nothing but our imaginations and crayons and stuffed animals, and I mean, we had video games, don't get me wrong, but we also had a ton of tactile toys and a lot of stuff that we could use our imaginations with. The neighbor kid that I was friends with at the time, he had the right of it. I mean, he took my Weapon X Wolverine figure when I said I wanted to play X-Men with our action figures, and took each of his little clawed hands in each of his hands, and he was like, "Row!" Against whoever I was holding, Sabretooth or whoever. And I'm like, I don't want to play like that. Plus, you're damaging my toy. You're breaking my only Wolverine. They had Weapon X in stores. They didn't have any Wolverines. They were always, I guess, sold out or not supplied. There was never a normal Wolverine at Walmart. Weapon X was the closest thing I had. Don't break Weapon X. Where was I? I have designed a bunch of games, and I've designed a bunch of unofficial, not commercially available games, and I have a ton of video game concepts, works in progress, demos, full experiences, jam projects, mostly on my itch.io page. You can check those out. They're all free. I have a bunch of them. They are exercises in what's fun, what is pacing, how can I use this engine effectively, How can I immerse someone? And if you've been watching the channel for more than 5 minutes, besides this video, you already know I love making homebrew stuff. I love commenting on design convention in board games. I love praising decisions that I think were done right. I love pointing out decisions that I wonder about. And more than just criticizing a game for decisions that it's made, I love offering suggestions as to what it could have done differently to improve. Things that make sense because hindsight is 20/20, and it's very easy to critique something that's already come out. And if I make something and I put it out there, I imagine there are going to be a lot of people that are like, why did you do things this way? Stupid. This here, completely unnecessary. And you could have replaced these 50 tokens with this one card draw mechanic this makes sense. Why didn't you do this? And I'm going to be like, oh, darn it. I don't know why. I guess I was just so happy that I was making a game that I didn't have any common sense in that moment. So I say all that to say, I think I know a thing or two about some game design convention. But you don't have to take my word for that. It's a bold claim on its face, so you can just disregard it completely if you'd like. I just wanted to go through that spiel. But I say all of that to say, if you make something that has a combat system and a progression system, you need to understand scalability. Now, what do I mean by scaling? Scaling is the process by which your character actually undergoes that progression system. Can you level up, or is there like an analog to leveling up? Yes. Is there gold? Can you spend that gold to buy things that will improve the parameters of your character? Yes. I mean, I'm not necessarily in HeroQuest when I say yes. I'm just more sort of talking to this hypothetical situation in which you design a system where there is scaling. Are you going to have furniture that you can collect in your game? And the more furniture you have and the more types of like wallpaper and carpet you have, the higher points your house will score for your villagers? Yes, that's an Animal Crossing reference more than anything. Then you need to have a way to continue making that fun. It's not just one hero against 100 level 1 slimes, and then the hero's level 2, and then level 3, and then level 4, and it's still 100 level 1 slimes. You have to add some sort of challenge that will make the player want to continue growing rather than feeling like they've reached the end of their journey. And that is where the challenge to the game developer of balancing comes in. That scalability requires this balance. It is an entire thought process and methodology with a ton of different approaches in game design. Do you have a combat system in your JRPG? You are going to need to balance it, and you are going to need playtesters to validate whether or not your game is way too difficult in some spots or other spots are so easy that it messes up the pacing. And because HeroQuest is a game system that has a little bit of progression from game system to expansion, and a little bit of a progression system in terms of you have gold, you can buy stuff, and then of course there are the individual systems introduced with each of the expansions, like the boons and Wizards of Morcar. So too, do they have to pay attention to challenge and balance. And there's not a whole lot of that other than expansion is hard. Expansion harder than base game. That's fine, that's valid, but that's all there is. There's not a way to make the game more challenging beyond that second expansion, or first expansion, second campaign, if you will. There's not a way, presently, rules as written, to make it to where the heroes won't steamroll everything in sight. And that's why we have different ways to start. That's why we have variations of characters that don't have 4 attack, 4 defense when they are at their peak. They have a limitation, and they have a limitation because they have ability cards. They have ability cards that make them situational. They have ability cards that make the player think, how do I play this character the most effectively? And this is the meat and potatoes of this entire video. This is the entire point. How do I play this character the most effectively? How do I play this character so that they are the most in sync with their team? The original 4 heroes basically have the entire campaign and all of the expansions of the original designed around them. The developers knew what the heroes were going to be. The developers also did apply a scaling mechanic that was separate from buying gold, buying armor and weapons with gold in the men-at-arms hiring system. And it's a good thing too, because the men-at-arms were absolutely needed in the expansions in which they showed up. The challenge was absolutely built around the presence of these men-at-arms. The developer took for granted that you absolutely would be taking advantage of the introduced mechanic and hiring men-at-arms or mercenaries. The Frozen Horror is a mercenary meat grinder. I've seen people complain about the fact that there are traps on the first square of a room, which makes it impossible to detect said trap because you have to be in the room to search for traps. Homebrew solutions aside, and Zargon, making sure that doesn't happen too many times, and altering the quest, which is also a homebrew solution aside, that has to be done to make the game harder. There's no other way to make the game harder other than to add more random stuff or more enemies. And so to avoid that, because that is a sliding scale that is extremely linear, and the more farther more out it goes, I can English, the more boring that becomes. It doesn't become rewarding to have a 5 attack, 5 defense, just beast of a machine of a hero go in and slowly get all of their body points chipped away because the developer decided, yeah, I'm going to give you this special armor and this special weapon, but I'm going to make this harder, and I'm going to put a pit trap in the beginning of every single room, and you'll never find any of them. Yeah, that is one example of how to scale, and definitely there is some balance applied there, but it's not done well. So we do have examples of that happening from way back in the older expansions and in the remasters of those expansions. But the better way is to develop heroes, and if not heroes, because you buy an expansion, it may not have a new hero in it. It may have a repeat of a hero that already exists in it. Then apply mechanics through new weapons and armor that will make the intended heroes have a little more utility, a little bit more versatility in their play style. No hero is an island, and I think 4A, 4D trumps is a statement that kind of lends itself to an authority that a hero, singular, should have some sort of ultimate form where all heroes are created equal and this hero is better than this hero. But if you really dig into what makes the game more fun, it's the varied play styles, and it's the new offerings of the rogue and the knight and the other newer heroes that we have. They absolutely accommodate different play styles, and that player who wants to run around opening all the doors, they're already covered. But the player who wants to follow after that player and make sure they're protected, make sure they've got a shield that they can defend them with using one of their abilities, make sure that they have healing magic so they can restore them if they open the wrong door, let too many monsters out into the corridors. That playstyle is also accommodated. And if you know how to effectively handle the rogue, that character can be an absolute beast in a lot of different scenarios. Not every scenario, because again, this game has a lot of different varied enemies and a lot of different skirmish situations and a lot of different traps and just other mechanics that are going to drain your BP. And these heroes aren't meant to be standalone champions. They are meant to work together. And so those playstyles begin to matter more and more when your players have that sense of cohesion. When you enter a dungeon and you actually have your cleric, your healer of the group, and your tank of the group, and your ranged one of the group, and you're one of the group who can disable traps, they begin to feel like they all have a role, they all have a purpose, and they are all able to accommodate one another. And yeah, on their own, each one of these guys is super good, but together they are great. And that's really what I think lends the most value to the characters. It's not the 4A, 4D. It's the idea that there's a way to effectively play this character that makes you not care about the 4A, 4D. And again, I am not saying that there's anything wrong with playing 4A, 4D. That is absolutely a play style. A lot of us were forced to have that mindset because there just were not other heroes. You had the wizard, whom you constantly had to protect. You had your dwarf, barbarian, and elf. And so you gave them all helmets, you gave them all shields, you gave them all battle axes or long swords, and you gave them all crossbows. And you said, that's good enough. Let's steamroll. Thank you guys very much for your kind attention. I hope that this complete rant that was entirely unnecessary has somehow provided you with some entertainment and or inspiration. If you liked it or if you didn't, please hit the like or the dislike button and let me know in the comments what you thought. And I am not throwing any shade or disrespect or anything to the commenter in question. In fact, I want to thank the commenter because it was a kind of a wake up moment for me. I'm like, but the orc bard has its own strengths. I mean, don't get me wrong. The orc bard is a very contested character. It's been controversial since its concept art was shown in the HasLab campaign. And I get it. I'm not immune to it. I have loved defending it and making videos and all of that about it because that's fun. But I get it. I get it. And this wasn't a call-out video or anything intended to be mean-spirited or anything at all. It just made me think, oh yeah, there are people who would approach the 4A4D as the peak way of playing. And I would just like to remind folks, hey, there's other characters and they've got their strengths also and their weaknesses by design. Because you can't have every single player have a hero that's 4A4D and they can use magic and they have an advantage at disarming traps. Well, I guess you have the toolkit. So, I mean, there is that. So we'll just pretend that let's rewind. You can't have all of your party members have 4A4D and have their ability cards that give them their special advantage. You could just have some that are objectively more OP than the others. You have to have some sort of trade-off to keep that from happening. Right? I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Good, bad, or ugly. It's all good to me. And I will see you in the next exciting journey. Until then, brave heroes, I thank you very much again. And I bid you a farewell for now.